All right, guys, what is going on? We've made it to the final week.
Yay.
We've made it. Final week. And that is where we stand currently. Um
Mike's wearing his Browns gear this time. I mean, you got enough, enthusiasm to put the Browns gear back on.
Baby steps.
Ah.
yeah, it's it's funny. I wrote a long description to the stream and I kept thinking about this season and what it was all about. And I think it came down to a couple things. It came down to number one, it was a lot of bad luck. We had injuries, we had COVID hitting at the wrong time. So injuries, COVID, missing extra points and field goals were at critical moments, poor execution and poor discipline. So poor execution meaning, drop passes that were off the mark, poor blocking, and then on defense, poor execution, tackling or, all that kind of stuff. And then penalties at mission critical times, penalties when we're driving, penalties when we're, trying to get in field goal range. It's just stuff like that this whole season has been like, basically a disaster. And it just goes to show, I mean, if you look at a team like the Ravens, who have an absolutely automatic kicker, absolutely 100% automatic. And then you look at us, and we went through 3 kickers this year. 3 guys who are good enough to kick to make it to the professional level, and none of them could consistently make an extra point. An extra point. It should be like it should be easier than a free throw.
Yeah, but they're not the same extra points as a couple of years ago. I mean, they've got a little bit of distance to them. They can't nonchalant them like they were doing before, which was the whole purpose of trying to make it a little bit more difficult and separation, and so therefore avoid the overtime games and things like that. But yeah, it was very inconsistent as far as our kicking is concerned.
Kicking was bad. It has to be addressed.
Right.
It absolutely has to be addressed. And if it's not going to be addressed, then we're going to have a problem. And we're not going to win games.
Well, I think we got a lot of time. I think there's going to be a lot of people brought in. You got a ton of guys graduating from college. Some are pretty good. So somebody's going to step up. I mean, it's not like there's such a small amount of talent out there. I mean, there's going to be people to pick from. Yeah. The question is how aggressive we want to be, and what the competition work out during the summer as well as into spring or into the spring training games or the exhibition games, and Mike, see who wins the job. Go from there.
Mike, what are your thoughts on just recapping what we had to experience this season?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bunch of bad quarterback plays at the top. No fault but his own, like we've talked about many a times, trying to make a tackle when he should have just left it alone. That started the problems. And then we had the OBJ rather issues. You had untimely fumbles and untimely missed kicks, and it took a little bit for the defense to gel. Yeah, I mean, it's as I sat here this morning and got into my clown suit, I felt here we go again, because today is irrelevant. I mean, the only thing today will do is solidify our draft position. Other than that, we're back to the same old, who were we taking in April, and mock draft after mock draft, and fights on social media over, what we need in the first round. You're going to have arguments, over this receiver, or, the people that, like a certain quarterback that are angry with the quarterback that we have. And I know, Ian Rappaport's report came out this morning that, everything's copacetic in in Browns land. And
he's getting that directly from the front office, but which is what it's just what they want to put out there.
And I would not personally read into any of that right now. We've said many a times that the logical choice or decision was going to be to run this back next year, just to the fact that, that there's not much in the draft unless, we're missing something, and the people that are evaluating are missing something. And, we don't know what, free agency is going to look like. Obviously the Russell Wilsons, the Aaron Rodgers, the Deshaun Watson, they're not coming. Excuse me, they're not coming. I can tell you that for a fact. And so, here we are. Most, the biggest scenario coming back, it would be, I should say, Baker coming back. Now, do I believe that, Ian Rappaport put out a report and everybody's like, yep, we're good, we're just going to run it back? No, I do believe that these guys are a little bit too smart at the top, that, they'll look under every stone and they'll kick every tire. And at the end of, the cycle, if you will, if they feel like there's somebody that was there, that you will see that they made a change, or, if there isn't, and, we're just going to run it back like we all thought that they would. So it's just the shame of it all is the fact that here we are, week 18 this week. And you know what, real quick, and then I'll let you guys get back to what you were talking about. But I feel like we talked about this the other day. COVID was mishandled this year in terms of changing protocols, mid-fly. And looking back on it, and I get it, they want more revenue and they want that extra game, etc. But if they were really concerned about, getting through this COVID period and everything that it entails, I think they would have held off on the extra game this year. But that's just my 2 cents. But back to the mock drafts.
Yeah. And I mean, this is one of those games that, like, I'm a Browns fan, but we have to look at what the implications of this game could be. And what is the point of winning a completely meaningless game that actually has reverse fortune for us? We win this game, it's going to give us a worse pick next year. It's not like it's we're not trying to get the first overall pick or anything like that, but winning this game is going to have implications on where we end up drafting. And at the end of the day, at this point, since we're no longer in contention this season, we have to think about the future. And although I'm sure those guys are going out there playing, nobody's going to be laying down in this game. But it comes down to who the Browns decide to put in. Like, if we're running heavily with Nick Chubb, or is Kareem Hunt back in this game? Do we know?
He is officially out. Okay,
if we're running heavily with Nick Chubb, I think that's criminal. Yeah, it should be.
Ward is out too. So, I mean, there should, if you can spare a starter, I would have him on the bench as a backup, and only need him if it's critical, and just go with second, third string, as many third string guys as you can, so it doesn't look too obvious you're trying to lose the game, but certainly not pulling out all the stops, not going for it on fourth down, things like that. I mean, it just, like you said, Mike, we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we win this game and we wound up with a pick at 15 versus getting a pick at 12 or 11.
Yeah. And I mean, if we sneak into the top 10.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean,
Denver didn't help us. They lost. So they stay at 7 and 10. So they're going to be one of those. I don't know if we have a tiebreaker with them. If not, then they're going to pick ahead of us. So that's,
well, they should. We beat them. So
yeah. So I don't know if it's head to head. Is that the first breaker? If it is, then we lose that one. So there, there's a couple others. Minnesota's at 7-9. Atlanta's at 7-9. So, if those teams win and go to 8 and we stay at 7, that improves our chances and we move down from 16 to, 15, 14, whatever. And then, of course, a couple of the other games have some meaning as well. So as to how they turn out. So it's going to be interesting to not so much to watch the game, but just to wait for the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm going to do, guys, and just a quick shout out to everybody who happens to be here today. We've got Hambone, Greg Smith, Mick the Dog, Cleveland BCI. Who else we got in chat here? Those are the heavy chatters this morning. I'm gonna be doing a watch party, so I'm gonna watch the game here. We'll stay live. We'll just stay live on the stream, and we'll play around with it today because it's a meaningless game, and I've been wanting to try to do a watch party anyway. So why not do it here? I can't actually show the game, but I can show, from what I've seen other YouTubers doing, is I can show like the Yahoo Gamecast, and I think I can actually play the audio from the game, although that could get me in trouble as well. But we'll see. We'll play around with it and see what we get away with.
Are you not coming over, Mike?
Yeah, I've decided I'm gonna stay and watch the game.
Okay.
So yeah. This season's been ugly. It's just been a gross season. And last year we had all those victory Mondays, and this year, only 7 of them?
Yep.
With a losing season confirmed, with poor quarterback play, poor coaching, poor execution. I mean, we are exactly what our schedule is. I mean, if we have guys step up, if we have kickers that step up and make kicks, if we have our star players, you're getting paid millions of dollars. I mean, how many drop passes did Austin Hooper have this year that hit him in the mitts? Too
many. Well, especially for the salary that he's.
Yeah.
And he'll be an interesting one to see. If they run it back with him next year or not.
At this point, that's one of those things. Is like, has he certainly hasn't played up to the contract. He certainly hasn't been even close to sniffing a Pro Bowl mention. He hasn't done what Mark Andrews or Kelsey or Kittle or any of those guys have done, a Pro Bowl tight ends. He came to the Browns, like most free agents. He's come to the Browns and underperformed.
And what's interesting is when you look back to that free agency period, if you will, the 2 top names, I believe, I don't think I'm missing anybody. I'm pretty sure it was just these 2, but it was Hunter Henry and it was Austin Hooper in that cycle. And, Austin Hooper has done more than Hunter Henry, but, in a lot of circles, Hunter Henry was the star of the 2 of them. He went to New England and he's done really nothing. And Hooper is, Hooper's done some good stuff, but he's done a lot of not so very good stuff. So it is what it is. And Njoku has stepped up his game in terms of his blocking output, and he's been seeing the ball a little bit better, catching the ball a little bit better. So and he's young. So maybe next year is the year that they try and really put him out there and make him attempt to make him a difference maker. But Harrison Bryant is I believe he's really a good player as well. He catches everything.
He's got the best hands out of the 3.
He does. And I think that you didn't see him as much as, let's say, Hooper, just because out of the 3, believe it or not, he's the least best blocking tight end. So yeah. Mark Andrews is and Travis Kelce are like the quintessential tight end for this offense, can block for the run game, and then are so dynamic in the passing game that it's almost like you have an extra receiver on the field. Obviously those guys are special, and that's why there's just a handful of them in the league. But man, we go back and we talked about it maybe 2 Wednesday shows ago or whatever it was, but I mean, Mark Andrews was out there. You could have reunited him with Baker, and they chose to take Chad Thomas at that spot. And I don't even know what Chad's doing. Hopefully he's putting some records together or whatever it is, but and vinyl, not on the football field. But what are you gonna do? Is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we got 3 statistically below average tight ends. I'm calling it as it is. We have 1 first-round draft pick. We have 1 ex-Pro Bowler. And we have 1 guy who we drafted who, I mean, if you really look at it from the performance perspective, the guy who's kind of performed best for what we brought him in for was probably Harrison Bryant. He hasn't done much either. And he has some limitations when it comes to his his ability to block. So we haven't had a solidified answer there. I'm most concerned with the drops. I mean, with blocking, I've seen poor blocking too this season, but I am most concerned if the ball hits these guys in the hands, how many times Hooper dropped the damn ball, and then everything gets blamed on Baker. The statistics, the completion percentage, all of it all gets blamed on Baker, which some of it, when he misses long or wide or whatever, when he throws interceptions, a lot of them are on the quarterback. But it's also, let's say you have a drive and the first 2 passes are incomplete because guys drop the ball, then you're forcing him into a third down situation where he has to throw and they can tee off on him. And everybody knows that they just put an extra defensive back there. So you're making it exponentially harder for the guy. Right. And it's just unfortunate. It is, the lack of focus, the lack of vision.
Last night's game was a good example or yesterday afternoon's game between Denver and Kansas City. Denver played, very well for most of the game. Drew Lock played as good a game as he's played all year. Had a chance to not only to win it, but at least certainly tie it at the end. And somebody misses a block on the 5-yard line, lets the guy come in to the backfield just after he hands off the ball, creates the fumble, picks up the fumble, and runs for 95 yards for a touchdown. So, I mean, if people don't do their job, the quarterback can only do so much. And this year has been a complete team effort, including the idiots at the NFL with the COVID and everything, and the refs. I mean, it was not our year. It wasn't a lot of teams' years. A lot of teams could probably complain more than us. I mean, we had a lot of good games that we could watch that were nail biters all the way down to the end that we had a chance to win and never did. So it's good to put this one in the rear view mirror, forget about it, and concentrate on next year and getting upgrades like we did on the defense last year. Andrew Berry is a great general manager, so hopefully he will be able to pick out those hidden talents that we need, and we can add them. And that Baker, has a successful surgery, and the coaches, figure out what they did wrong between Stefanski calling plays and Woods calling his defensive schemes and whatnot, and that we turn it around and we're back in the hunt and back in the thick of things come next year. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Browns haven't drafted an offensive player in the first 2 rounds since 2018 when they took Baker Mayfield, right? So it's about time that we start addressing that side of the ball and start making some moves. And as Mike and I talked about on the Wednesday show, there's talent. There's offensive talent out there. It's not a quarterback heavy, draft, which is fine, but it's wide receiver heavy. And, I think this is the year that we go out and we actually try to make a splash at the receiver position, because we can't really go into next season with 3 mediocre tight ends statistically, and aging Jarvis Landry, a DPJ who makes flashy plays but also has been incredibly inconsistent, Austin Schwartz, who has just been missing in action for the vast majority of the season other than the first game. So a third round pick, Austin Schwartz. Schwartz. And so we have to, and then you look at what Jamar Chase won that game against the Ravens. He won that game single-handedly against the Ravens for them. So it just goes to show, like, when you can get a dynamic wide receiver who teams either have to respect, like when we had Odell, or who actually, God forbid, produces. How wild would that be if we had a wide receiver who actually produced? Do you guys realize that in the entire history of the Cleveland Browns, one of the oldest teams in existence does not have a wide receiver who's ever caught 90 balls in a year? Any player, not even wide receiver, just tight end, anybody who's caught over 89 passes. It's pretty bad. I mean, you look at, I want to just for comparison, okay? So far this season, Hunter Renfrow has 99 receptions. A guy that, unless you're playing fantasy football, you probably wouldn't be like, or you're a Raiders fan, wouldn't be very familiar with. He's got over 1,000 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. And he's got 99 receptions, and he's going to have 100 receptions in 1 year. Hunter Renfrow. And yet we're like, well, Odell caught 40 passes and making $1 bazillion. And the reason why I mention Hunter Renfrow is because he's a 5th round draft pick and a guy who's outperformed his contract, is a possession receiver, and he just doesn't drop balls. You throw it at him, he catches the ball. He might not take it to the house like a Jamar Chase would. But at this point, we've got Jarvis Landry, who should be shorthanded, but he is getting long in the tooth, and we can all agree on that. We have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was drafted to be not because of possession. We drafted him because of his big play, making ability and his talent, but it doesn't result in possession. And then Austin Schwartz, who's a burner. He's again not a possession guy. So we don't have a guy that, and then on top of it, the guys that we brought in to be those check down guys. Kareem Hunt was injured all year, who's got phenomenal hands. And then you've got Hooper and Bryant and Njoku, who are if nothing else, they could be a check down guy, who aren't as short-handed as they need to be. And they're not going to get 100 balls. So I think that's a glaring deficiency, no matter who the quarterback is. It could be Case Keenum, it could be Baker Mayfield, it could be whomever. That is the biggest problem. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have if we look at the scenarios that are out there in which we would replace Baker Mayfield. Like bringing in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. There's no way. If Aaron Rodgers didn't like who he had at wide receiver with Lazar and those guys, and he had to bring in old Randall Cobb, he's not coming to the Browns. What quarterback out there who actually controls his own destiny, who actually is worth the juice that they squeeze, is going to want to come to the Browns, who are a primary running team, who don't have a wide receiver that is going to catch 100 balls, or anybody's going to scare anybody.
Yeah, and especially when for all intent and purpose, Aaron Rodgers is at the end of his career, and you look at Russell Wilson, who has come out publicly and said, look, I want to win in Seattle, or win again in Seattle, I should say. And he's sort of, I don't want to say he's at the end of his career, but he's getting up there in years of service. So to your point, yeah, these guys aren't like, oh yeah, what I want to do is wrap up my career in Cleveland. Never going to happen.
Right. So I don't think there are very many good options out there as far as quarterback is concerned. And if Baker can come back from the surgery and be healthy, I went back and I just looked at the stats from 2020 versus 2021 for Baker. And he only had 8 interceptions in 16 games last year. His receivers were okay, basically the same as he had in 2021, except he had Odell a little bit, which I'm not sure help matters, but I think that's pretty much Baker. I think if we can have, he had 486 attempts and he only had 8 interceptions last year. Whereas this year he had 418 attempts and he had 13 interceptions. Seems like he's had 18 or 19. Sounds like he's leading the league, but it could have been worse. He was sacked only 26 times the year before. He was sacked 43 times this year. So I think you get a healthy Baker back. You're in the top 10. You add more depth to everything. And we're a contender next year. Now, whether we win or not, all depends on how they play. Do they show up? Does the coaching staff show up? Do we avoid the key injuries that kill teams and the penalties that killed drives and the discipline that was there last year but wasn't there this year? Hopefully it's an anomaly. It's just a bad year. We weren't going to win it anyway, so chalk it up to that. So let's hope we come out with a decent draft choice that is a plug and play type of player that has an impact. I'd love it if we got a really good wide receiver, but anybody that can help us in cracking that starting lineup on defense or offense would be great.
The interesting thing that's a little worrisome is when you look back at last year's schedule, it was a weaker schedule.
Right.
And then you look at this year, it was a much tougher schedule and one of the toughest, I would say, in the league this year. And you saw what happened. And then now we fast forward to next year, which will now be another powder puff schedule. And so on paper, probably next year, you could get mediocre play all around and still find a way to make the playoffs, I think. But at the same time, then it's worrisome that now you're getting another false picture, if you will, of maybe the quarterback position, or really that's the biggest glaring one. It'll be interesting to see. I just hope. I don't think the shoulder this year was ever the issue in my mind. And what I mean by that, I know that sounds crazy because he was hurt and that affected his game, but it was the footwork and the mental aspect of it. So I hope that this year is finally the year that he says, you know what, it's put up or shut up for me, not only from a starting quarterback in the league, but from making that payday to set me up, the rest of my life. So, hopefully he takes on a coach in the off season and they work on the footwork and they work on the mental aspect of going through reads and progressions. Because if I guess we could sit here and we can say, hopefully, right? We at this point, we have to hope that he was so mentally caught up with his shoulder week in and week out that he wasn't thinking clearly when he was going through his reads and looking downfield. That's what we have to hope for, and hope that next year when he comes out and he's healthy, and he needs to stay healthy. So that's another aspect of the game. He needs to figure out, hey, if I'm going out of bounds, I go out of bounds. I don't put my shoulder down. If I have to fight for a first down, fine, I'll dive on that play.
Yeah.
The other 9 times out of 10, I have to slide, and just be smart about it. And if he could put that part back together again, but like you and I talked about on the Wednesday show, and the 3 of us actually were on, and we went through that list of weaknesses when he was drafted, and footwork and going through reads. I mean, that was on there. So hopefully we see a jump from this year till next through the off season. If not, these guys are going to be, looking to upgrade the position. I think they still will, like I said earlier, look under every rock and kick the tires to see if there is an upgrade. But I think the smart thing to do at this point, and I know it's, there's some folks out there that it's not the popular plan, but it's the one that was always probably going to happen. And we've talked about it, is it's really tough to chase a position. And this year you're going to be
for 20 years.
right. And like this year you're blessed. And I use that, very lightly because we're not making the playoffs. So, we'd rather be blessed with a playoff position, but we had a bad enough year that we are going to be quote unquote blessed to be able to take a top receiver. And there's plenty of them in the first round. You can't even go wrong with, the first 5 of them. So, the smart thing to do would be to upgrade that position in the draft, see if you can, get a Ridley in here. I don't know if they, if they need to make sure that all his issues are gone. I know that they were talking about it, the Falcons and him splitting, and both of them, getting a clean slate, if you will. So, if someone like Ridley checked out and they're comfortable with where he is, and they can get a deal done with him and then bring in a first round draft pick, I mean, you exponentially,
change
the wide receiver room, is head and shoulders above. And maybe you're able to, I think they have to move on from Case Keenum. I think they have to find a very serviceable backup to where, if we're seeing the same things next year, that they can plug and play a guy, maybe like a Gardner Minshew. We've talked about that. I don't know, what his situation is with, with the Eagles right now. I'd have to look that up, but someone like that, if you're in dire straits and you're seeing the same traits and he's losing games, that you can plug that guy in and hope that, he gives you the kind of quarterback play that gets you to where you want to go.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at, Minshew, it would have to be somebody like him because I think he's under contract. Looking at the 2022 unrestricted free agents, Ben, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Dalton are all over 10 million in their 2021. So they're going to want probably somewhere around that. But just in terms of the names that are out there, and I think this is why that report went out today from Rappaport, that everything's fine with Baker and the front office and the coaches, because they don't want this drama to continue lingering on into the postseason.
Yep.
And they don't want the drama lingering on to the beginning of the regular season, although the Cleveland media, I'm sure, is going to do their best to continue this thing and keep it going as much as possible. But unfortunately, at this point, I think that the people out there that are the consumers of the Cleveland media have gotten wise to their, boy calling wolf tactics. They have turned on them in a way that suggests that they don't believe them anymore. And going to Mary Kay's article about it, when to be honest, I don't doubt that she spoke with somebody there, that somebody told her that there's some dissent or there's some stuff. I mean, there's been rumors of that all along.
Yeah, it's out there. Out there. I've heard the same thing from the people I talked to.
We talked about it on the Wednesday show 2 weeks before this thing went live with Mary Kay. Just for everybody who happens to be out there, Mike broke this story 2 weeks before. So this isn't something that is completely new. I think what the problem is it's the narrative that she was trying to form, and it got her what she wanted, which is anytime the Cleveland local media breaks stories like this that shits on the team, what you get is the national media picking up on it because it's negative news and it's salacious. And so the national news people pick up on it, and then they give her media time, and it gets her face out there, and it gets Cleveland, Cleveland.com gets a lot of clicks and stuff like that. So they don't care if it's truthful or not. It's like, if it gets them close enough to the truth with the narrative that gets them clicks, that's their job. It really is. It's what media is. It's what journalists are paid to do at this point in our life. And to look back at any journalist and be like, well, they're all these honest, perfect Walter Cronkites who are only going to ever give us the truth and nothing but the truth, is it's fantasy land. right? And you can tell that Mary Kay and Tony Grossi have a bone to pick with Baker, probably by the way that he's responded to them in a negative way. He punches back. He doesn't allow them to do that. And then, just to undermine her article, Baker comes out and says that it was clickbait and it's not true, right? And then you have the team that comes out and backs up Baker saying everything's fine. Now, but the reality is, you can't, as Browns fan or anybody who's looked at it closely, you have to know that there was something going on in that locker room based off of the reaction that they got during the whole Odell drama situation. And when the players were all jumping over themselves to say how great of a teammate Odell was, and defending him versus defending their actual teammate. The guy who he didn't do it. He was thrown under the bus, which resulted in the whole spotlight of the world looking at him. And it gets this guy released, and all the teammates go and say goodbye and we love you and good luck and all this stuff. But there's not a single guy that comes out and defends Baker until last week with Case Keenum, who says that it was the most gutsy performance this season that he's seen out of, ever from a quarterback. He gets one guy to publicly come out and say that he supports him emphatically, who happens to be the backup quarterback who's going to take his job this week anyway.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, there's clearly drama. Hold on one second, Dad. There's clearly drama in that locker room. So she's not wrong. She picked up on that like we all did, and then talked to somebody, and then created an article about it to create more dissent within the locker room. And that's the biggest problem I have with the Cleveland media is there's so few of them. There are good ones. I think Cameron Justice is great. I think Hayden Grove is great. There are some really good ones out there that exist. But there are so many of them that I think are Browns fans deep down as well, like we are. And they get upset because their articles aren't being read as much. They're not relevant because so much of their success as journalists, as media people, comes down to the success of the team itself. If the Browns are in the Super Bowl, all those guys are getting trips to the Super Bowl. They're all getting read. They're all getting brought on TV. It's turning their careers up a ton. But when they're not, and when the team stinks again, the only way for them to show that they're relevant is to create these clickbaity type articles that may be based in truth. They may be, but it sure pisses off a lot of people, including me. And if you look at the tweets that I've been putting out all week about the Mary Kay situation, there is the amount of ratio that are in support of what I'm saying versus the couple people that are defending her is it's 95-5 in favor of these media people are clowns. So I'll stop there. I want to make it clear that there's an agenda behind this because of how their career is directly aligned to the success of the team. Similarly to the success of this channel is aligned to the success of the team. When we got into the playoffs, beat Pittsburgh, we had the most viewers, live viewers, in the history of this channel. It was like 750 live at one point, which for us was the size of this channel is huge. And it leads to growth and it leads to more good things in the future, right? So it is important when the Browns play well. It upsets me that she gets to say whatever she wants and she gets to get away with it. It's just frustrating for me. Anyway,
I think to play devil's advocate there,
please.
That and I like all the beat writers that you just Cameron and Hayden and there's a couple of Ashley is new on the scene and whatnot, but I think that's just it. I think they're new on the scene, and you take someone like Mary Kay, and me and her, we've had our history like for real.
And before you go on, Mike, hold your thought there for a second. I want to make this very clear as well. One of the things that the Mary Kay, the Daryl writer, and I will read that alert in one quick second here. Sorry that got eaten up there by the. But I do want to make this clear because these people that their main job is to reach the Cleveland audience have reacted in such a negative and toxic way towards the Cleveland audience because we're all pissed off at the type of stuff that they tweet. And yet they get access to the players. They get access post game. They get access to them in practice, in the preseason, all that stuff. They get almost unlimited access to them. And yet they'll come out and give their personal point of views that are unfounded, that are just opinions, instead of asking those questions and putting them on, in a position to, hey, respond to this. This is what I think. How do you respond to it? They don't do that. They'll tweet it. And they'll get all the people pissed off about it, but instead they could go out and there and do that. And then when people disagree, like Mike, like you and I have disagreed with them or publicly disagreed with them, they'll either block us or, like in your situation, where MKC literally came into your DMs, randomly started DMing you because you disagreed with her, and then at the end of it, you weren't being disrespectful. You were just simply.
I was having a conversation with her.
Simply disagreeing with her led to you being blocked because she has this trigger finger for people that are negative and that do disagree. So you can't disagree with her. You have to just consume. She thinks that she runs it. You have to just consume the media from them. And it's annoying. Anyway, sorry. I just want to make it clear for anybody who is not aware of that situation. Mary Kay literally started DMing Mike because he disagreed with her in a respectful way and then ended up blocking him
mid-conversation,
so he couldn't respond. And I think it's incredibly childish. It's incredibly, it just shows that they don't know how the internet works. I've blocked a couple people here and there that have gone, really off the chains, and I'm like, look, I don't want this guy anywhere near my life. So I've done that. But people that are just disagreeing with me, like that bozo Marty, whatever his face is, who was just in every one of the comments about MKC. I'm not gonna block you, dude. I'll mute you. I'm not going to block you. Anyway, sorry. I didn't mean to derail. I just want everybody in chat, and I want this to be on record what she did to you.
Yeah, no, it's good. And it was nothing. What was our former defensive coordinator, the former head coach of the Cardinals, Steve? I can't think of his last name.
When?
Somebody in the chat.
When was
maybe
it?
Help me. A couple of years ago.
Before
he was the defensive coordinator. Steve, he was the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, Steve Wilks.
Steve Wilks, yeah.
And that's what it was about. She just really went in on him, and I didn't agree with it, and I just tweeted something about that I just thought that it wasn't right the way that she. It was almost an attack on him, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but. And yeah, like 10 minutes later, she was in my DMs wanting an explanation from me as to why
you dare to disagree with her,
why I thought that it was why I didn't agree with her, with her question. And we were having a conversation, like literally. And then she just blocked me, like, and it was nothing. I mean, I have the screenshots. I could send them out there if anybody's interested. But I guess the point that I was making, and somehow it's going to stick up for her, which is really in bizarro land. But I guess the point that I was going to make is like, you look at these newer people that are on the beat, and they're just that, they're new. So they're getting their feet wet, etc. But eventually, if they stay here and do it long term, or if they go somewhere else and they're in it long term, they're going to start getting a reputation as the go-to person for the team they're covering. And then they're going to start building those relationships where they're going to start to have a couple of people on the inside where they're going to be able to start getting their information. And you're going to start seeing some stories from those folks, sort of like the MKCs and the Tony Grossies. The only difference, I think, will be it's not going to be coming from a place where there is losing history and there's a history of animosity, I guess, towards the team and certain players. And so it might be more of a healthy dose of it. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to eventually see stories such as the ones we've seen recently, because they will start establishing quote unquote sources inside the building. But yeah, I mean, like I said, hopefully it'll be in a different light, knowing those people. And, we're not in because I mean, people forget, like MKC was here before, and Tony Grossi before they left. And then they came back to the dumpster fire that we all know. And it's, I mean, a good portion of the fan base is jaded. So,
yeah,
it's kind of, it would be kind of, I don't know if selfish is the word, but to think that, there's a portion of the fan base that's jaded, that you also wouldn't have the older guard of the media that would have some sort of jaded, impact or outlook as well. So just my 2 cents. And I never thought that I would actually, as tiny as it was, stick up for her. But yeah, that always eats my craw, because I just, look, if you don't like something I said and I'm being respectful, and if you're jumping into my stuff and I'm having a rational conversation with you, there's no need to block me. I mean, and I'll be honest. I mean, there's stories that she has and stuff that she has that, I would like to read and I would like to see. And I have to go to my burner to look at that. So, it was just stupid, because, we were just having a conversation. You've seen it 1,000 times. I'm sure a bunch of people in the chat have probably seen it that follow me. And yeah, I mean, it's not smart to, to run your account or your person that way, but I digress.
Yeah. And just really quick, Rick Atkins came in with the super chat. I miss when players weren't allowed to have interviews with the media. I don't even remember. It's been so long. I think in the current like modern era, they've had so many, post game interview type stuff, and they want to talk in the player. They want to give access to they want to give the media access to the players more and more, which is, I mean, when you just go out there and you lose a tough game, and then you don't want to go out there and talk. I mean, I barely want to come on Browning post game and talk about it when we lose, let alone these players who their livelihoods depend on it, and their careers are impacted by losses. It's got to be tough for them to go out there and then listen to the questions from these dumbass reporters. I think that there needs to be a change, and I think a guy like Hayden Grove, who is on Cleveland.com, he's on their roster. He's one of those. But the only way it's going to work is when people stop clicking on their stuff and stop listening to their shows. When the ratings go down and they can show that these people are not what the audience wants, the consumers get to decide. That's the only way. And you look at channel growth like Quincy Carrier. You look at the channel and the community that we have, that we're slowly growing here as well. I mean, there's a reason why Quincy has 20,000 subs. There's a reason why we're closing in on 5,000 subs ourselves. It's because people want to have a different voice, and we get negative. Don't get me wrong. Like we call it as it is. We're Browns fans. That's the whole thing. I'm not a professional. I'm not like, like some of those guys out there, they're going to break down film and do all that kind of stuff. We're basically just giving our emotional reaction to what we see in the games. And we talk about some of the scenarios and all that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of honest reaction is one of the reasons why we've had the kind of growth that we've had. Big shout out. Thank you, Rick, for that super chat. I want to say hi to Ara and Sarah, who are in chat as well. Max Nikolenko's in the house. Wolf Stand's here now. So Gabe Decker, all those guys. So guys, thank you very much for hanging out with us. I'm going to be watching the game live here on the channel. So we're going to stay live during the game. So if you guys want to hang out, you want to stick around while the game gets going, let's do it. See how this goes. See if I get taken down by YouTube, or if they allow me to do it. I don't know. I've looked at a couple other channels, and they've actually brought in the audio from the game into their channel. So I don't know if that's, I don't think it's legal. I don't think you can do that, but at the end of the day, it's probably worth just a test run to see how it goes. So if anybody wants to, I obviously can't show the game. Sorry, I can't show it, but we can talk about it. We can watch it as the game goes on. Not a very exciting game because there's just really nothing on the line. And, this is one of those situations where it's the last game of the season. If this was back in like the Deshaun Kaiser era, or, you know, that kind, even before that, I'd say, and we were out of the season by like October, you know, we'd say like, let's win some games. Let's see if we're getting improvement. Let's do that. Like I wasn't advocating for losing back when we knew we didn't have a competitive team. But now with one game of the season, with our backups playing against their backups, it doesn't matter. And you could have a guy like Nick Chubb go out there and blow out a knee, and we could miss him for next season or a significant chunk of next season. Or worst case, it could be a career-ending injury on a game that doesn't matter. It's insane for that kind of stuff. So I think they rest the stars. They let the other guys go out there and show what they can do. It's essentially a glorified exhibition game that happens to be being played during the regular season. And if we can get a better draft pick out of a loss, then fine. Then let's get that, because as we've seen year in and year out, one pick, one position, one or two can be a big difference when it comes to the guy that you want, or the best player on the board, versus having to scramble or trade back, or who knows. So I'm not advocating for us to go out there and do our best. I really do think it's the best thing for the team to go out and play the game today and just lose the damn game and get a better position in the draft. Like that's honestly what I'm hoping for today. If we beat the Bengals in a completely meaningless game, I'm going to be like, what are we doing, guys? What are we literally are shooting ourselves in the foot if we do this today. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like I don't, and I get it. I mean, you're paid to win games, and you're paid to play, and there's no doubt about it. But I think in the, for guys like Nick Chubb, I mean, unless, there's something that we're missing, and, he's playing for an incentive somewhere along the line to make more money or what have you, certain amount of carries or yards. I mean, how this, how they structure contracts, but I don't think you gamble with him. I really don't. I don't think he is essentially your core, right? So I don't think that he's a guy that you can mess around with, that, especially a guy that had a history of, his knee was shredded at Georgia many years ago. But I think that, for someone like him, if you want to play him a little bit, I'm not even happy about that. But I think, to run him out there and run him 20, 25 times today is a recipe for disaster. I mean, we've all seen those stories where, somebody's playing in a meaningless game, and then the next thing you know, now we don't even know if we're going to have them back for the start of the season. But, we'll see. Not our decision. I know Baker's there. He was out warming up, signing autographs for fans and stuff. So, that, I guess, that's good to see from a.
Yeah, he hasn't left the team.
Yeah, from a leadership standpoint. So, his surgery, I think, is scheduled for the 19th or the 16th. And
29th.
Is that what it is? So he's still there and warming up and throwing the ball around. And yeah, I think the only reason he played last week was because they wanted to beat the Steelers at home and at least split the series and salvage something. Once that didn't happen, it was over.
Comparison to what the Bucs are going through with Antonio Brown, in comparison to the Baker situation, Antonio Brown decides on his own that he's healthy enough to play, gets cleared, then performs, in mediocrity as far as the game is concerned. The coach wants to put him back in, and he says, "Nah, I don't really want to go back in. My leg hurts, my ankle hurts," and he decides to. The coach says, "All right, you're out of here then," and then he throws him out of the game and out of the stadium, and then he proceeds to take, obviously, the uniform off, make a big scene out of it, and then he prances through the end zone. which clearly he could run on the ankle. I mean, it's not like Baker, who's got a confirmed medical torn, shoulder, and he goes out week after week in a very dangerous position of getting clobbered. And Antonio Brown just says, I tweaked my ankle a little bit. Now maybe I'm going to have surgery on it, and that'll make everything right. And they tried to make me play. I mean, that just shows you the difference between players. And at least with the coach, he wasn't going to take any crap from Antonio Brown, and he just kicked him out of the game, kicked him off the team. And somebody will pick him up because he's got some talent, just like Gordon and so forth. You just keep giving him more and more chances, week after week. But Baker was very gutty. I give him a lot of credit for trying, and he needs to get healthy. And it's all about him, I think, getting back on the same page with Stefanski at the beginning of the year, that they run the schemes that they both can live with, that highlight Baker's abilities like he did in 2020, and not like in 2021 where he tried to do too much on a broken arm. So let's hope we get a good draft choice that helps us do that, as well as the rest of the draft and the free agencies that we pick up in the offseason, and we start next year, on a really positive note. You let the media control the narrative like they're doing here over the last 2 weeks, or
not even control it, create it.
Yeah, creative, whatever. It's just terrible. They tried to do it in Tampa Bay too with Brown. The coach didn't want to have any part of it. Just said, "Get out of here." And why? And why can he do that? Because they're winning, and they don't need him. I mean, it would be nice to have him, but they don't need him. They got there last year with pretty much without him. So I mean, it can't fall on one guy's shoulders like Baker. And obviously, if he plays bad, that's on him. But let's give him the chance to recoup and come out next year and support him, support the team.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned in the chat about Jarvis, and everything I've heard, he loves it in Cleveland. So do I think they're going to give him that? I think he's got a $15 million cap hit or something like that, 1.5 in dead space. So I think that one or two things are going to happen. They're either going to restructure and make the salary more palatable for the output if he's into it. If he's not, I think that they also find a way to restructure and give him something so the salary is a little less, so he can get picked up somewhere else. But I have a feeling that both sides are gonna figure it out, and he'll be back next year. And I think that from a mature pros pro in the wide receiver room, I think that would be a very wise decision, because if not, then you're looking at, bringing a kid in, and your most tenured guy at that point, probably for all intent and purpose, would be Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I don't know if Higgins is on this roster come next year. I doubt it. So I hope that they could do something, and they can restructure and keep him on the team, because I do like him, and I think he's a solid slot third down kind of guy. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think Higgins might be, just in terms of, I don't think he makes up the possession type wide receiver like a Brian Brennan type guy. He doesn't have that body where he's going to go over the middle like a Wes Welker or those type of guys. That's one of the things that we're missing desperately on this team, is somebody who can just catch every ball. That is the problem. We have guys who can make diving catches on the sidelines and tap their toes, which we need. You need those too. But
you need a Welker, you need a Brian Brennan, you need a possession receiver that Baker can go to, other than a tight end, which has been up and down for us this past season. But you're right, we need a guy like that, and he doesn't need to be a first round draft choice. It could be a Renfro type, that comes out of Clemson or whatever. Just a possession guy that, like you said, Mike, catches every ball.
Yeah.
That you feel comfortable and that Baker feels comfortable with. I think if Baker's not comfortable with Jarvis next year, then they should terminate that relationship. Jarvis should go somewhere else. He's at the end of his career. And if he and Baker are not on the same page, that's not going to be good going forward next year.
Well, and you think about it, they've been on the same page. They've been buddies the entire time. Baker's first pass in the NFL was thrown to Jarvis.
Sure.
And Jarvis
right in front of me.
And Baker's first pass catch that he caught was from Jarvis.
Right.
Right. So,
but it changed when Odell left, when that whole Odell thing blew up.
It changed when Odell got here.
Yeah, that too.
It went from the offense, the clear offensive vocal captains with Jarvis, it's contagious guy, clearly trying to change the dynamic of that team. And then Baker stepping up and becoming and emerging as the new leader of the team as well, with his feeling dangerous and changing the swagger of the team and all that stuff. Right. That's one thing that these Browns fans everybody happens to have a very short memory of when we had quarterbacks that were just, I mean, they were afraid, if nothing else, right? Baker came out and said, screw it, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to sling the ball around and we're going to win or lose. Another super chat just came in from Rick. Who do you guys like in the first round? I don't know if there's a player yet I can say, but I would say I like any one of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers would be fine by me.
Yeah, for me, it's Williams from Alabama, Wilson, Olave, and Burks. Like those, and where we're going to be drafting. I mean, you're getting one of those guys, so hopefully we get the right one. But I mean, I don't.
If we like somebody really good, then we move up. We got draft choices that we can give up if we're that hot on somebody. If not, I mean, I hate the take the best player available type stuff. If you're the Buccaneers and you're Super Bowl perennials, yeah, that's fine. But when you have so many holes like we do, that we need somebody to step up and be able to be inserted into that starting lineup and be an impact player, then you gotta make that pick and you gotta be careful about it. So Andrew Berry's very good, and I have a lot of confidence in those guys to not do what I've seen over the last 20 years. And Mike and I have paid attention to the draft every year for as long as I can remember. And we're always excited about it. And we're always sort of halfway disappointed in terms of who they wind up picking, except for, when they took Myles and they took Baker. I think we were in pretty much agreement that those were pretty good slot, along with Chubb. And even Chubb was a gamble because of, as you pointed out, Mike, his blew out his knee at Georgia. There was no guarantee that he was going to do anything or last very long. Yeah. So he's turned out to be a true, tremendous draft choice that others passed up on and gave us that.
Well, so far, him and JOK have been the two guys who have outperformed their draft position.
Newsome and JOK. I mean, those are really good, solid picks. If we can continue to do it, and I have faith that our guys will do that, then we should be better and just go from there. That's all we can hope. I just hope we don't go backwards. I mean,
I think we've
been around long enough for us to go backwards.
I think we have too much talent. Max Nikolenko came in with a super chat. It's not right to hold onto a player just because he did good 3 years ago. I think honestly this front office is too smart to look at that and not look at current production. And I mean, they're not.
Belichick cut players that were icons.
Randy Moss coming off of like a legendary season. He cuts Randy Moss and pisses off Brady to the point where, Brady was like, "Hey, as soon as I can leave, I'm going to leave."
Yeah. So I mean, you have to have guts if you want to get up to that pinnacle. If you want to get up to the top, you want to get to the Super Bowl. You've got to make some tough choices. And you got to make some tough decisions, and they affect people. They affect the fan base, because they're wearing the jerseys and they like the guy. et cetera, et cetera. But just like our punter, nice guy, colorful, and we gave him a shot, and he did well for a while. But when you can't perform, and it started with him on the punter when he failed to, he dropped a kick, and he should have kicked it anyway, and he started to run with it, and we got hosed on that play. I mean, you got to have faith in all of your players, and we got too many holes to not make a good pick at number one in the first round.
Yeah.
And an interesting development this week. I don't know if you would call it a development, but and it struck my memory when we were just talking about Chubb and the injury that he had previously. But I don't know if anybody caught it, but earlier in the week, they had asked Stefanski in his press conference about the, ton of soft tissue injuries this year. And he said that was something that they were going to go back and look at to see, if there's something they're doing or there's something that they can change, because there were a ton of soft tissue injuries this year. But at the same time, you find it, with everything that evolves from, technology to, in this case, the medical field. It's amazing when you look back at, and you guys will remember this guy, but if you look back to Willis McGahee back in the day for the University of Miami Hurricanes, I mean, he was a kid that was a top 5 talent that, was supposed to be the next great running back, and blew his whole knee out in I think it was the 2003 Fiesta Bowl, I believe it was. And back then, I mean, I think he's 40 now, but so it's not that he's that old, but back then, the surgery and the rehab for something like that wasn't as high tech, if you will, as it is for today when Chubb did it a few years ago. And, for
similar injury.
Absolutely. And so I guess, where I was going with that is just, to me, it's amazing how, 15, 20 years ago, that would have been a death sentence for Chubb. And because of the advances in the medical field, et cetera, and the training, which comes back to what I was, the first point, these guys are able to, I mean, look at Cam Akers. I mean, he did an Achilles five months ago. And I mean, for all intent and purpose, the guy could probably play tomorrow. So, that's something to look into. I'll be interested to see what comes of that, them going back to reevaluate that. But it's a big thing because, again, in today's medical world, you shouldn't be having this many soft tissue injuries throughout a year. There's got to be something that can be improved, and maybe see less next year. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that we had, and you know what it was, Mike? It was not the game injuries necessarily, like Jed first game of the season. Like, we saw that injury. It's like in practice, these guys are tweaking stuff.
Yeah, the groins and the hamstrings and the calves.
Yeah, it's just like, oh well, he's now questionable for the game with something, and you're like, wait, what?
It's throughout the league though, as well. I mean, it's not just us. I mean, look at Baltimore. I think Baltimore suffered more.
Yeah, they were ravished.
Injuries and more bad luck throughout lucky they got those early close games, a 68-yard field goal against Detroit. I mean, they pulled a couple of games out of their rear ends early on that kept them in contention, and now they're barely hanging on by their fingernails. And it's all because of the injuries. So, I mean, we can cry in our beer all we want in terms of our stuff, but the rest of the league, and we know you have to stay healthy if you're going to make it to that final game, and to get you to the record that you need to be able to go through the playoffs. And this was not our year. It wasn't the year for a lot of teams that could complain. There's a lot of teams that are in a lot worse shape than us that are really good franchises, like the Giants and Denver and a couple other teams. There's some up and coming ones as well. Cincinnati had made dramatic turnaround with the adding of Burrow, and obviously they made some other ones that I haven't really followed all that closely, but their defense improved. Their offense improved. Their coaching improved. So, I mean, even though we're losing Roethlisberger, as a main competitor, main guy to hate, main guy that beat the hell out of us, now we're going to have to deal with Burrow. And God forbid Pittsburgh gets another quarterback that, puts them back on top, then we're going to have one of the toughest divisions to win and to be consistent against, just because of the quality of the play within our division. So,
and what's interesting, and you bring up a good point, Dan, is when and obviously the Baker wars are in full effect throughout Twitter, but I think when you look at even like the national guys in terms of, former players, former quarterbacks that you always hear, in order for Baker to succeed, he needs to have everything perfect around him. We've heard that a ton. And I think part of the perfect around him goes to the defense has to play great, right? Or extremely good, where you have two guys that you named, a Patrick Mahomes or now a Joe Burrow that enters the conversation, that, you look at the Chiefs defense and you look at the Bengals defense. The Bengals defense has improved, but and Kansas City had played a little bit better defense, and now they've resorted back to what we've seen all year. But you look at those defenses, and they aren't very good statistically when you look through the rest of the league. But the difference is that you've got quarterbacks on those teams that they are exactly what those pundits talk about, that they don't need everything perfect, because those guys can win on their own with their arm and their decision making and just their skills. And I think you saw that. I mean, if you don't have Patrick Mahomes on Kansas City, even with the talent he has on offense, they're not where they are today. And then if you look at Cincinnati, and if they don't have Joe Burrow, they're not where they're at.
Green Bay too. You take Aaron Rodgers out of there.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely
mediocre at best.
Absolutely. So I think that you, more than ever, I mean, that's still the arrow points to, Baker just can't be a game manager, because I think game management worked in 2001. I think in today's NFL, not so sure game management works anymore. It's a passing league, and yeah, you could run, but you got to be able to sling it when you have to. And we haven't seen
improved
that. Yeah.
With Mac Jones. I mean, granted, I think he had one bad game over the last 8, but I'd take that statistic, 1 for 7, in bad games. That's great. I mean, he came from nowhere, a rookie, working for Belichick was pretty tough. Their defense did relatively well. I don't know if has he got outstanding receivers?
No, not really. He's got that one kid that I can't think of that.
But I mean, he's had a tremendous year for a rookie. I mean, he looks confident. He fits into the scheme that Belichick is running.
Mm-hmm.
They could go all the way. They could be the real deal here if they can get past a couple of these early games. But
what's interesting is he's a guy too that going against my point has been a game manager throughout the year. But there was a couple of weeks ago where in order to win the game, they had to let him open it up.
And he did.
So it's really important to be able to put a team on your back and win. And we just haven't seen that yet. And hopefully if they do run it back, which we think they will, you have to hope that maybe there's, the light bulb goes off and you see that change. If not, we'll all be having this conversation, next January, and we'll be trying to figure out if Andrew Luck is in this draft. So we'll see.
I'm going to check out of here, guys, because the game is going to start. Mike, if you want to, Mike and Mike continue, have a good show, and let's hope for the best. I don't know what the best is. A win will satisfy some people, and a loss will certainly satisfy me and improve our draft picking. And we'll know a lot more about that by 6:00 tonight.
Sounds good, Ed.
All right. Take care, guys.
All right.
See you.
See you.
What you're staying on to go to watch the whole time, right, Mike?
I am. Yep.
All right.
I'm hanging out.
I'm going to check out and see what goes on with this game, and I'll be back shortly.
Okay. Do you want me to leave the Zoom going? If you want to,
yeah, that's fine. I'll just mute my mic and sleep the computer.
Okay, sounds good, man.
Cool. All right, guys, go Browns, and we'll see you soon. I'll see you soon.
All right. See you, Mike.
See you.
Okay. So it's time for game, right? Let's go. Let's get this thing going, guys. Just bear with me as I start messing with some of the stuff here. This is gonna be the first time I'm doing this. I'm looking for like a Gamecast type app. I know ESPN's got one. Yahoo has one. Let's see what we can do. Yahoo Sports. I typically do the Yahoo. If I'm gonna Gamecast something, I am gonna do Yahoo. I'm gonna start there. Let's see what we got. Well, we'll just see what happens. I mean, none of the Gamecasts are live yet. So as soon as that is, I'm going to pop it into this that window up there in the upper right-hand corner, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. We're going to watch some football. Move Zoom over here. And we will react to it in real time. So if you want to hang out, you are more than welcome to. Fire up the old YouTube TV as well. I can actually watch the game. Actually, is the game live or not? That's a good question. If the game isn't live, then I won't be able to do this, believe it or not. And we may have to cut it off. So I might have just bit myself in the foot here. Let's see what's live. Steelers game is live and Packers game, unfortunately. And I have no way to actually get to the Browns game. So unfortunately I can't watch it. I can't stream it live. We will have a solution for that next season though. I was really hoping to do that. I think next season what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out a way that I can stream it and be able to watch some of these games together, because I think that'd be a lot of fun. Until then, guys, thank you very much. We'll be back for the post game. We're just going to do it on Wednesday because I think we all have kind of some stuff going on this afternoon. So we'll be back on Wednesday for the Wednesday show, and we'll hang out. Big shout outs to everybody. Cleveland BCI, Pee-wee's here, Ray, Mids Plug, Xander, Cruise Op, Chad, Gabe, Wolfsan, Mr. Roll Up, Max Nikolenko. Max, thank you very much. Max and Rick for the super chats today. Appreciate that. Ara was in the house. Mike R, whomever that is. Mids Plug. I've gotta. All the regulars are in the house today. Just want to make sure. Mick the dog, Chad Tucker. All you guys, thank you. Mr. Beesif was here as well. Thank you guys for being here, hanging out with us. Appreciate that very much. And if you get the NFL Game Pass, sub and pretend you're in the UK, that will work. Okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll do that next year. I think because then I could probably VPN. Although that may make things a little bit difficult. But what I could do is I could do like an iPad or something like that, or have bring in the second computer so I can watch the game on the second computer. That I'll VPN that second computer, and then I'll just, hang out with you guys here. So, all right, guys, we'll appreciate it. We're going to kick this thing off, and we'll be back Wednesday, January 12th, the day before my birthday. So it'll be a birthday stream. We'll be drinking some, maybe I'll run over to the alcohol store, the ABC store here in Orlando and pick up maybe some Cleveland-based local brews if they have them. So, all right, guys, thank you very much, and we will see you later. Go Browns. Do your thing today. All right, see you guys.